Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to talk about something, and it's a chapter in a book called The Fourfold Formula for All Things Wellness. And the chapter is called Life is But a Dream. Now, this is a really interesting chapter because we all look for moments of clarity in our life where we can collect our thoughts, we can make informed decisions. Then life happens, and those moments of clarity and time become fewer and far between. Now we find ourselves on a treadmill in life, and the treadmill keeps going faster and faster. And we just seem at times we just can't keep up. Now, this constant state of stress is dramatically impacting our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. All these areas are suffering because of this. Now it's time to get our mind and our body back in sync. But how? How do we do this? We're about to find out. My guest is Cyndi Wilkins. Cyndi is an author, and she is a body work expert. She practices the art and the science of therapeutic massage and energetic bodywork for over 20 years. She knows what she's doing and she knows what she's talking about. Her approach to healing is recognizing that the mind and the body function as one system. What a novel idea, right? Who thought the mind and body would work together? Now, Cyndi's a contributing author, as I mentioned, to the new book, The Fourfold Formula for All Things Wellness, and this is by our friends Peggy Wilm and Dr. Marcus Vetman. Cyndi, welcome to our show on energy healing and integrated wellness.
Hi, thank you very much. It's very exciting to be here. I'm glad to have a chance to speak with you face to face finally, Frank.
I know we've been communicating virtually for a long time.
Yeah,
that's wonderful. Cyndi,
yes.
Give us a little overview of your early life. What led you toward this field of energetic body work?
Well, you know, my early life, my early career life, I guess, is the best place to start. I was a letter carrier for the U.S. Postal Service for just a little over a decade before my body began to communicate with me that it wasn't in it for the long haul. You know, and during all of those years, I had always used massage, bodywork, acupuncture, chiropractic, all of these different, you know, alternative modalities to try to manage my own pain rather than swallowing handfuls of, you know, those over-the-counter medications that eventually just eat away at your stomach. So you know, after a period of years of doing that, it became apparent to me that I was going to have to think about making some pretty significant changes in my career life. So I started to really hunker down and study more and more mind-body work, and always had a fascination with it. And one of my colleagues at work was taking a massage therapy course at a school that had just opened up down the street from my office. Talk about, you know, serendipity, right? And he came to me one day and he said, you know, with all these books you read, you ought to take one of these massage therapy courses. It's so fun. And I think you'd really enjoy it, you know? So I thought, why not? You know, give it a whirl. I did. I fell in love with it. Went through the entire curriculum. You know, it took me a couple of years because I continued to work full time while I was going to night school. And at the time, my partner at the time, now my wife, we were trying to have a child through in vitro fertilization. So for me, the mindset was I wanted to create something that I could do from my home. I wanted to create my own business and manage my own schedule. So when that little person did come into our lives, I was available as a mom, as well as being able to create, you know, doing something that I really love to do without having to have the distractions of a regimented work schedule.
Exactly. That's an outstanding story. That happens so often as we start a career. And who knows? I mean, there's no guarantees anywhere. And so you do what you can and realize this isn't getting it done. And you have that life-altering event and you make that change in your life. So congratulations to you for doing such.
Okay.
Now, Cyndi, one of the things you had in your chapter that I read, and folks, if you haven't got this book, go get it.
Oh,
One
yeah.
of the things she said in there, you refer to a field of lucidity. What is that?
Well, what it is to me is that twilight moment that we all have between waking and sleeping.
Hmm.
We're not quite awake yet. We're kind of coming out of that slumber, that nighttime slumber. Um, we're not completely asleep, but we're not completely awake. And there are so many things that happen in that little, I call it the space between, that
Hmm.
little capture of time. And interestingly, just to tell a quick little story, I had read an article in Rolling Stone magazine years ago with Steven Tyler
Hmm.
of Aerosmith. And he was asked, where do you come up with these ideas for this music? It's so wonderful. And he said, I often experience them in dreams. I hear the melodies just as I'm waking up, and I run into the studio before life gets going, and I get distracted so I can get it down. So, and that's what I tell people, whatever you can pull from your dreams, write them down. The more you do that, the more you practice that, the clearer they become. And the more that you experience of this, what I call the field of lucidity or lucid dreaming, is essentially what it is.
Hmm. Well, what's really interesting is one of your publishers, whose name is Kat Cannabis, who you know, is
Mhm.
called the Queen of Dreams, and she does all kinds of interpretations of dreams. And in fact, she diagnosed her 3 times with breast cancer through dreams. So they're
Yeah.
very, very powerful tools, folks. So if you're not paying attention, start paying attention.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
Cyndi, how
Mhm.
does someone reach this field of lucidity? Is it a conscious thought, or is it just something that occurs?
Well, you hit the nail right on the head with conscious thought. We all go there. We all go there in our dreams. We just don't always remember them. People tell me all the time, well, I kind of know I dream, but I don't remember my dreams, you know.
Yes.
And I think the question is, how do I get there consciously? And it's a practice like anything else. It's like you learn to play your own consciousness or your own brain. And I think the best way to do that is to feed your brain that information. If it's something that interests you and you want to learn about it or anything in life, what do? You feed your brain the information and you try to learn about it. And then when you're going to sleep at night, you set that intention in your brain to, I would like to experience more of this. I
Mhm.
would like to have a memory of a dream that I can bring through to my reality. And even little tidbits of things, even if you're just remembering something very small, like a person, a color, a smell, a number, write those things down because those are just little tidbits. They're little pieces of the puzzle that you eventually put together and you can create in your waking life.
Mhm.
Be it through music, be it through writing, be it through painting. There's so many different ways to manifest these things, these
It's
gifts.
amazing. You're
Yeah.
almost, as I've heard Kat say, you're almost setting the stage. You put this in your mind, you think about it, and
Right.
that it will manifest itself in your dreams. Is that what you find?
I do. I do quite often. Sometimes I wake up like, what was that all about? I have no idea where that came from, but I'll write it down anyway.
Hmm.
And then, I'm a big Google girl. I love to go into, if I see something in a dream, I dream a lot about spirit animals. I hear a lot of
Mm.
people talk about spirit animals
Yes.
constantly. And I dream a lot about animals, and I will key that into, what's the spiritual significance of, the owl or the dog or the wolf and a plethora of information comes up, as you know, on Google, and I find that it corresponds to something I'm experiencing at that time and in that moment, and can give me a great deal of clarity and insight onto making decisions about where I want to go moving forward.
Wow, that's
And they
amazing.
often, and it's interesting, they often appear in my physical. Now, I love to take walks in the morning with my dog. And I very much pay attention to what's around me. I think I got that from carrying mail for so many years.
Yes,
Being
exactly.
outside and looking around and saying, oh my God, I can't believe I was missing all of this being inside.
Mm-hmm.
So pay attention to everything around you too. While you're out taking those walks in nature, there are signposts everywhere.
There are. And someone had told me one time that the universe is always sending signs, always. And sometimes we pick them up and sometimes we don't.
Mhm.
All right. But the universe is basically saying this is going to happen. Now, if it doesn't happen with you, it's going to happen with somebody else. So stay focused and be listening. And one statement that I wanted you to touch on is you wrote in your chapter, I think it was right at the very beginning of it, life has a way of putting things into perspective. And often it's the loss of something or someone you hold dear. So how did that impact you?
Well, I think that goes without saying that we, often do not appreciate the things that we have right in front of us until they're gone. We often don't see their significance in their lives, be it a person, a pet, your health, your own health. So the impact of that for me happened very, very young in my life. I had lost a very close friend, my best friend, in fact. The summer we graduated from high school, she was killed in a terrible accident. And that is what, for me, sent me into this, initially into this horrible place of darkness that I had lost my interest in the land of the living. It was like I always tell people, don't have all your eggs in one basket, because if you experience a loss there's not a lot to fall back on, and you can fall into a very serious depression very fast. And that's what happened to me. And it took a long time to claw my way back out of that. But what helped me a lot was reading, reading about it. I became fascinated with the idea of life. Like, where do we go when we die? Suddenly I was having all of these thoughts that we don't normally think about until we're much older.
Yes.
Maybe approaching that for ourselves, or we find out we have this, this awful disease that threatens our life. Normally we don't just in our everyday thinking think about these things. It became an obsession for me. So that started my journey of the spirit, essentially, at age 17.
Let's stay on that topic, if we could. You put
Sure.
in your book, your chapter, you wrote this amazing story about your dad and that in between and where do you go. Tell us that story.
Sure. Well, I was sitting with, my dad at his bedside. He was in his last hours. And my dad and I had, through the years, had a difficult, I don't like to use the word difficult. How about challenging? We had a challenging relationship through my young life. And a lot of it, most of it had to do with the fact that I came out as gay, and he had a very, very difficult time with that. Just no understanding whatsoever. We couldn't talk about it. It upset him terribly. And I think he viewed it as something that he had done wrong in parenting. It's like he blamed himself for who I was. And that had a tremendous effect, a tremendous impact on me throughout all of my years. And it wasn't until my daughter was born that he began to get it, and see the light and come back to me and say, I get you now. I get you now. You're just like everybody else. You're just going about it differently. So we had an opportunity to come back to each other. I always call my daughter the bridge. She served as that bridge for us back to each other. So I could be there in those moments for him, those last years of his life. But in this moment in my story that I'm writing about was as he was passing. And it was an experience of this field we just talked about, this field of lucidity, where I had just a sudden a moment of drifting off. and having what some may call a dream, but for me, it was very lucid, very vivid, lucid dream I was conscious in, of seeing him as a much younger man, and having a conversation with him. And it was just it was so incredible writing this story that I really, my sister just called me the other day and she said, "Oh my God, I read your story and I cried and I cried and I cried." And I said, "Well, mission accomplished." Not that I wanted to make anyone cry, but I really wanted to make people feel that there's something more. When we lose our loved ones, they're not gone. It's not goodbye, it's see you later.
Exactly.
And one of my last words for him to, you will see me later. You will definitely see me later. So without giving away too much of the story, because you got to get the book now to read it.
Exactly. That is something that, again, I was a medic in the military during the Vietnam War, and there were so many of those experiences where you see something, or you see in a different realm. Remember when my mother died, we thought she had passed for a second because she stopped, and then she came back again and said, "It's so beautiful."
Yeah.
And it was just like you have to get this book, ladies and gentlemen. You have to read this story because this one is powerful. It really is powerful. Now, Cyndi, many people, they have these experiences and they tend to keep them private. Why did you want to write this in this book?
Well, the power of it, of course. And it, for me, was a huge step out of my comfort zone. For years I had spent kind of hiding, the fact, hiding who I was. And I just wanted to share a little piece of my heart and my story for other people if they may happen to be in that same situation, to let them know it's okay. It's okay to be who you are. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay if people don't get you. It's okay if people think you're crazy, because for many years my family thought I had gone off the deepy. And it was okay, I'm like, okay, well, if you guys feel that way, but this is what makes me happy. So, and my sister said to me years ago, if this is, I see you happier than you've ever been in your life, so this must be what's right for you. So, and that's what I tell people, when you're doing the right thing, when it feels good. And I tell people, if it feels good, do it. Because you're on the right track.
Exactly. That is so true. I was talking to my youngest daughter yesterday. She moved from Arizona to Portland. She has a master's degree, had a really good job at Arizona State, was miserable, absolutely miserable. Moved to Portland, works for a nonprofit, making a fraction of what she made, but she is happy. You could hear it in her voice. You could hear it in everything. So, ladies and gentlemen, if it doesn't matter what other people think and feel, it matters what you think and feel. And Cyndi makes that point so well in this chapter. You have to get this. You have to get this book. So, Cyndi, tell me, how can people reach you? And I understand you have something you want to give them.
I do. I want to give people a copy of this book. It is a lovely book. There are so many stories in this book that, it will be impossible for anyone not to find a piece of themselves walking throughout these stories pages. So what I would love to do is to give, I love the number 3. So let's say, 3 viewers here an opportunity to get a signed copy by me within, if you email me within the next, let's say 24 hours of this airing, you'll get a free signed copy. How does that sound?
That sounds wonderful. Well, that's wonderful. What is your email address that I'll put in? I have your email. I'll put it in the statement when it goes out live, ladies and gentlemen. So when you see this, it's Cyndi's email address. Send her a note. Have an autographed copy, published author. This is a story that's going to touch, her story will touch your life. And there's many others in this book that are equally powerful. So we're
Yes.
just about out of time, Cyndi. What
Okay.
last words do you want to leave with the viewers here?
Uh, Famous last words, right?
Mhm.
I think what I'd like to share with viewers is what we shared with our daughter every single day throughout this, this awful pandemic where we were all struggling with isolation. And she did as well with depression. And we told her every single day, do at least one thing that brings you joy, whether it's just sharing a kind word with someone. That very small act of kindness can make a huge difference in someone else's day. So do it.
Do it. Exactly.
Makes you
Do
happy.
something daily that makes you happy. One of the things that I hear, and as I was reading you making that statement, is kindness costs nothing,
It's free.
and
Yeah.
that kindness can mean so much.
A smile, just a smile. It speaks all languages, right?
It does. It
Yeah.
does. That's incredible. Well,
Would
Cyndi, as I was
you
saying,
do you need my email address, or are you just going to forward it?
I have your email address. Why don't you
Okay.
tell it to us, and so they hear it, and then they'll see it when it gets posted.
Okay, I just want to be very clear about it because my name is spelled a little differently than most. It is Cyndi Wilkins, and that's Cyndi, Cyndi, Wilkins,
Mhm.
12 as in the number at gmail.com.
So Cyndi Wilkins 12 at gmail.com. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you make note of that. And it'll also be in the summary when this thing goes live. You'll see it on Facebook. You'll see it on LinkedIn. You'll see it on Cyndi's site because I'll also send her a link. So as I said, we're just about out of time. I want to thank Cyndi for sharing this story. Life is but a dream, and I'm sure it's going to resonate with hundreds and hundreds of people because it's a universal thing. So, ladies and gentlemen, when life gets, as we saw, seemingly insurmountable obstacles are thrown in your path, do three things: look up, get up, and never ever give up. Pick up the pieces, start moving forward, and better times and better people like Cyndi Wilkins will come into your life. You can see this show on ROKU TV or on my YouTube channel, Frank Zaccari. If you go to YouTube, please subscribe. And let me leave you with this, ladies and gentlemen, as I do every week. None of us are in this alone. And the secret to walking on water is to know where the rocks are. And today, Cyndi showed us where many of those rocks are. Join us again next week, and we'll discuss more energy healing and alternative wellness. Cyndi, again, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, Frank.
My pleasure.